So Corey, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what's going on with sovereignty for the tribes in the state of Maine and what we can do to make sure that we do the right thing?
Doliwis, Corey Hinton, New Jayao, Portland, Anita Beggs, Zibayag, Nagabalans, Beskid Magadnil. My name's Corey. I live in Portland. I am from the community of Zibayag, the place at the edge of the water, and from the Francis family, and I'm Passamaquoddy. I am an attorney here in the Dawnland in Wabanaki territory. I work primarily with the Passamaquoddy tribe, and I've been deeply involved in all of the tribe's collective efforts through the Wabanaki Alliance and through the Wabanaki Leadership's advocacy in Augusta and in Washington, D.C. to reform and modernize the Maine Indian Claims Settlement Act in a way that restores and recognizes Wabanaki sovereignty on a level that's on par with the other 570 tribes around the United States. Our work in this regard, it started in 2019, shortly after Governor Mills was elected. It was the legislative leaders that invited the chiefs to participate in a process to make recommendations, to study the Settlement Act and make recommendations to modernize it, which the Settlement Act, by its plain language, invites the parties to do. So this was never intended to be an agreement in stone. Of course, laws can always, be changed, but Congress literally wrote in this one that the state and the tribes can work out agreements to, change jurisdictional boundaries and, generally to update their agreement. That's never really happened. And so this was an effort to engage in that. So there are all of these recommendations made, and they were split up. The governor ended up refusing to negotiate essentially on any of these recommendations. She vetoed a bill that included a gaming portion of the recommendations, and then refused to negotiate over all of the other recommendations that were encompassed in a much larger bill that ultimately died earlier this year. But the elections this past year, they opened up a door for new opportunities in the legislature, because the Senate and the Senate and the House, are going to be continued to be led by our friends and our champions in the legislature, including Rachel Talbot Ross and Troy Jackson. Rachel Talbot Ross in particular, she's been an amazing champion for the Wabanaki Nation in Augusta. And so her leadership, literally, as the House Majority Leader, and her passion, paired with Troy Jackson's, political wizardry down there in Augusta, I think the sky's the limit. Of course, negotiating with the governor's office, it'll always be a separate dynamic. The tribes will have to decide how to approach this new legislature that'll start in January and this new term for Governor Mills. But there's a lot that the tribes are doing in the meantime. One thing that did come out of this last legislature was not amendments to the Settlement Act, but the legalization of online sports betting, pretty significant changes to how taxes are applied to Native citizens within their lands, and a wide range of tribal state collaboration initiatives. And so we're working really hard in implementing all of that. And that takes a lot of time and resources for the tribes, and a lot of what my job is sort of on a day-to-day. So the tribes are going to have to decide, with all of that going on, how they can allocate resources and time towards the upcoming legislature and working with Governor Mills moving forward. There'll have to be a decision of what the priorities are, what can be accomplished, and what maybe is unrealistic to be accomplished. I mean, we saw how her administration reacted to large sweeping legislation, and that was pretty negatively. And so we'll see if that type of legislation comes forward again, or if there'll be a different approach taken. But I think that Jared Golden being reelected and Democrats retaining control in Congress of the Senate means that there could be potential opportunities to advance legislation in Congress as well. And I think that the tribes, right now, we are very focused on the end of this year and the opportunity to pass the Advancing Equality for Wabanaki Nations Act in Congress, which was introduced by Jared Golden, and that would give the tribes access to federal laws passed by Congress moving forward. And so there's a lot going on here. That is something happening right now. We're really hoping to get through to Senator King and Senator Collins. But I think, moving forward, much more attention will be back in Augusta as everyone's preparing for the next legislature. So in terms of what people can do to support the Alliance, the tribe's efforts right now, the tribes formed the Wabanaki Alliance as a 501c4 specifically to be able to carry on and to sort of cover some of the incredible costs of this efforts for the tribes, the legal fees, the travel, the need to have a constant presence in Augusta and lobbying in Washington, D.C. It's really hard. And the tribes, I don't think, generally speaking, given all that they have going on, fighting still, rolling pandemic and inflation, the resources necessary within a tribal government budget to do all of this, it's hard to come by. The Wabanaki Alliance has been a tremendous support in terms of providing human resources and financial resources to really keep the big advocacy effort moving. And this includes, covering costs of, the executive director of the Wabanaki Alliance, who's organizing all of the coalition meetings every couple of weeks, paying for our website, paying for ad campaigns, and covering the costs of, travel for people to come down to Augusta to actually lobby, and lobbyists too, for that matter, which are obviously a really important part of this. So I would humbly ask folks who are out there to support the Wabanaki Alliance through financial contributions and to really sign up for the Wabanaki Alliance's newsletters and to listen to what the Wabanaki Alliance is putting out there. There is a pretty sophisticated communication and advocacy effort that the Alliance has constructed, and that's putting out information and creating opportunities for people to weigh in with the legislative process, whether it's in DC or Augusta. And so I'd ask folks to really plug themselves into that network and to be an open ear and to, be ready to maybe, support the tribes in exercising their civic rights, however that may be in the future. But the Wabanaki Alliance is a place to get plugged in and to really learn what the tribes are going to be doing and how to support the Alliance as a whole. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today, Shay, and to all your listeners. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Really appreciate you, Corey. That's really important information. And I think that the work that's being done with the Wabanaki Alliance is super important. And as more people see what's going on, I think that, more people can definitely get involved. So thank you for giving us so much time this morning.